Imagine walking into a room, the kind of room where every glance, every whisper, every footstep carries weight. A room so steeped in history that even the wallpaper seems to remember centuries of secrets. And then, breaking that silence, comes a statement so audacious, so unprecedented, that it freezes everyone in their tracks. I am the Queen now. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Those words weren't whispered in some off-the-record rumor. They were declared, boldly, by Meghan Markle, in a private meeting that has now sent shockwaves from Buckingham Palace to the far corners of the world. You might be asking yourself, did she really say that? And if she did, what does it mean for the monarchy, for King Charles, for Prince William, and for the future of Britain itself? What happened next is a story that the palace would prefer you never knew, but the details have leaked, and what's coming is more explosive than anyone imagined. Imagine secrets so tightly locked they could alter centuries of tradition, all suddenly exposed because one woman decided the rules no longer applied to her. Now, before we go any further, let's be clear, this isn't just gossip. This is power, privilege, and protocol colliding in ways that have never been seen before. This is Meghan stepping into a room built for kings and queens and daring to rewrite the script. And what she did next, well, it set off a chain reaction that's still reverberating today. Let's pause for a second. Imagine being a palace staffer, someone who has spent decades serving quietly in the corridors of power, suddenly witnessing a bombshell like that. The mix of fear, disbelief, and maybe even excitement, it's hard to overstate. And that's exactly the atmosphere in the room when Meghan made her declaration. Eyes widened, jaws dropped, and somewhere in the palace, a note was quickly scrawled. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. Why does this matter now? Why should you care about a single meeting, no matter how dramatic? Because this moment isn't just about Meghan Markle. It's about the monarchy itself, the fragile balance between tradition and modernity, duty and personal ambition. It's about a global stage where the public's love, criticism, and fascination collide. And it's about power. The kind of power that shifts quietly at first, then explodes, leaving everyone scrambling to adapt. You might think that Meghan's declaration was just drama for drama's sake. But in reality, it was meticulously calculated. Every gesture, every carefully chosen word, every glance was part of a strategy that has been years in the making. And the people around her, some supporters, some rivals, some completely unaware, had no idea what was coming. Now, consider the reaction. The palace isn't just a building. It's a world unto itself, governed by centuries-old rules, rituals, and hierarchies. One declaration can disrupt alliances, awaken old grudges, and force decisions that will affect the line of succession, public perception, and even international relations. And Meghan? She seemed to understand that all too well. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The story isn't just about what Meghan said, but what she didn't say. The pauses, the silent glances, the weight behind her words. Sometimes, in moments like these, silence speaks louder than declarations. And the reactions. Oh, the reactions. They tell a story of fear, admiration, jealousy, and power struggles. Imagine the king, the Prince of Wales, and other senior members caught in a moment where protocol couldn't protect them. A moment where centuries of tradition were suddenly put to the test by one unexpected, modern challenge. And then there's the media. We all know how quickly news spreads, but what happened after that private meeting is unprecedented. Rumors became headlines within hours, social media exploded, and palace insiders suddenly had to navigate a storm they weren't prepared for. Every detail leaked, every comment analyzed, every action dissected in real time. And yet, the public still only saw a fraction of what really happened. But why stop there? The intrigue doesn't end with Meghan's declaration. There are letters, recordings, and secret communications that reveal just how deep the storm goes. Secrets that were meant to remain locked away in the palace archives, only to surface in the most dramatic ways imaginable. And each of these reveals adds layers of tension, betrayal, and irony that would make even the most seasoned royal watchers gasp. Let's take a moment to think about the stakes. This isn't just about titles or public appearances. This is about influence, legacy, and history. Every royal family member is acutely aware of the weight of their actions. And in that private meeting, Meghan wasn't just making a statement. She was challenging the very structure that has defined the monarchy for centuries. She was forcing everyone in that room, and now, all of us watching, to reconsider what power really looks like in the 21st century. And you might be wondering, was this spontaneous? Was it a slip of ego? Or was it a calculated move in a game that the rest of the palace didn't even know they were playing? The truth is, it's probably a mix of all three. But one thing is certain. The ripple effect of that moment continues to expand, touching every corner of royal life and beyond. So where does that leave us now? What can we expect in the aftermath of such a bold statement? That's exactly what this video will explore. Over the next hour, we'll uncover the shocking details of that fateful meeting, explore the palace's internal chaos, reveal secret alliances and betrayals, and examine the worldwide reaction that followed. Every chapter is a piece of the puzzle, and each piece brings us closer to understanding the full scope of Meghan's audacious move. And here's the kicker. Just when you think you understand what happened, a new revelation emerges. Something that no one in the palace anticipated. Something that could change not just Meghan's future, but the monarchy's as well. But before we get there, let's set the stage properly. Imagine the room again. Picture the grandeur of the palace, the polished wood, the portraits of monarchs past, and the hush that falls over it when history is being made. Now, imagine one person stepping into that space and daring to reshape it entirely. That's where we start. That's where the royal story begins. And as we move forward, ask yourself this. What would you do if you had the power to change centuries of tradition with just a few words? Would you have the courage? The audacity? The strategy? Meghan did, and what came next would change everything. From whispered panic among palace staff, to the private notes that would leak like wildfire, to the strategic moves that left senior royals scrambling, the dominoes were set in motion. And it wasn't just about titles or appearances. It was about control, perception, and who really holds power when the cameras are off and the doors are closed. But even as the world reacts, as media outlets scramble to frame the narrative, and as palace advisors plot their next move, one question remains. Who truly benefits from this audacious declaration? Meghan, or the palace itself? The answer is not as simple as it seems, and the story you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about power, tradition, and ambition. Because by the end of this video, you'll see that this wasn't just a statement. It was a turning point, a spark that ignited a chain reaction, and one that no one, not even the king, could fully control. And just when you think you've grasped the stakes, remember this. One tiny decision, one hidden letter, one unexpected alliance. Any of these could rewrite the next chapter entirely. And what came next would shock the palace and the world alike, setting the stage for secrets, betrayals, and revelations that you've never seen before. The room is silent. The declaration hangs in the air. The world is about to change. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Imagine the air in the palace thick with tension. Every footstep echoed like a drumbeat. Every rustle of paper sounded like a warning. And then there was Meghan, standing in the center of it all, calm, composed, and utterly unapologetic. The room had been arranged with quiet precision. Only a few trusted advisors were present. King Charles sat at one end, the weight of decades of tradition visible in the crease of his brow. Prince William leaned against the side, arms crossed, a mixture of skepticism and concern written across his face. And Meghan? She carried herself as though she belonged there, not as a visitor, not as a guest, but as the rightful occupant of the space itself. Her opening words weren't hesitant. They weren't polite. They were deliberate. "I am the queen now," she said. The phrase hung in the room like a storm cloud, thick and electric. No one moved. No one breathed. For a moment, it felt as if time itself had paused to absorb the audacity of the declaration. Have you ever been in a room where a single sentence completely changes the atmosphere? Where everyone suddenly realizes that the rules they thought governed the world no longer apply? That's exactly what happened here. Staff who had spent years navigating royal protocol were suddenly frozen, unsure whether to act, speak, or run. The silence wasn't polite, it was shock. And then the reactions began to surface. King Charles's hand trembled slightly as he adjusted his glasses, a subtle but telling gesture. William's jaw tightened. Even seasoned advisors, individuals who had handled crises ranging from public scandals to international emergencies, were caught off guard. Some whispered under their breath. Others tried to mask their disbelief with forced smiles. But all of them understood the gravity of the moment. This wasn't a misstep. This was a declaration of intent. Meghan's gaze swept the room. It was deliberate, sharp, and strategic. She made eye contact with key figures, pausing long enough to let the weight of her words sink in. Every subtle nod, every measured step, was designed to signal that she wasn't just speaking, she was commanding. And the truth? It worked. There was a palpable shift in the energy of the room. Some felt fear. Some felt admiration. Others felt something that could only be described as reluctant acknowledgement. But here's the twist. This wasn't a reckless moment. This wasn't someone flailing for attention. Meghan had prepared. Every phrase had been rehearsed, every pause calculated. And somewhere, in a hidden corner of the room, a note was being passed, a note that would later be leaked, igniting a media frenzy that no one could have anticipated. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be part of a secret so explosive it could alter history? That was the atmosphere here. Every glance between the royals was loaded with meaning. Every subtle movement, every raised eyebrow carried significance. The tension wasn't just interpersonal, it was structural. The very hierarchy of the monarchy was being tested in real time, and the palace staff were unwitting witnesses to a seismic shift. But it wasn't all formalities and silent tension. There were contradictions everywhere, little sparks that revealed the underlying chaos. A staffer shuffled papers nervously, betraying a lack of composure. William shifted from foot to foot, caught between disbelief and the need to maintain authority. And yet Meghan remained unflinching, almost serene, as if she had walked into countless storms like this and emerged unscathed every single time. And then came the first unexpected move. Meghan didn't just sit and wait for a reaction. She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping, soft but piercing. "This isn't about titles," she said. "It's about who has the courage to lead, who has the vision, and who is willing to challenge the outdated structures holding us back." The words were carefully chosen. They weren't a threat, they were a challenge. And the people in the room felt it immediately. Some stiffened, some recoiled, some, surprisingly, felt a spark of excitement. You might be asking yourself, did anyone push back? Did someone immediately object? Yes, but not in the way you might imagine. Charles cleared his throat, a subtle attempt to reclaim authority. William opened his mouth, then closed it again, hesitating. There was a delicate dance unfolding, every move calculated, every response measured. And the irony? Meghan had already anticipated it. She had positioned herself perfectly to turn hesitation into leverage. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Unknown to everyone in the room, a small recording device had been activated just minutes before the meeting. It captured every word, every pause, every subtle inflection. That recording would later leak, shaking not only the palace but the media worldwide. Every nuance of Meghan's delivery, every strategic pause, would be analyzed, dissected, and debated endlessly. And yet, at the moment, no one knew it existed. Have you ever been present in a conversation where someone seemed to know exactly what everyone else was thinking, even before they spoke? That was Meghan. Every reaction, every tension, every micro-expression was acknowledged, and every response had been anticipated. She wasn't just participating in the conversation, she was orchestrating it. And the more you think about it, the more it becomes clear, this was about control, about perception, about reshaping power without firing a single shot. And then came the subtle but pivotal gesture, a soft smile, just enough to disarm, just enough to signal confidence. It was tiny, almost imperceptible, but it carried more weight than a dozen declarations of authority. Some in the room noticed and felt a pang of unease. Others interpreted it as a silent victory. And in that single gesture, the dynamic had shifted irrevocably. What came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming.